LSO chosen one. Two people investigated you. One just received God final warning. What if two people have been quietly watching your life, studying your patience, testing your character, measuring your heart, and you never even noticed? What if one of them came close to walking away with something that was never meant to be theirs, and heaven just stepped in to stop it? Have you ever felt like something was shifting around you? Something you couldn't name, but you knew deep down that the atmosphere of your life was changing. Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. Some seasons of your life are quiet on the surface, but loud in the spirit. And this might be one of those seasons where judgment, mercy, and destiny are all moving at once, whether you can see it yet or not. Problem right now, you might feel like you're standing in the middle of confusion. Maybe someone close to you has been acting strange, distant one moment, overly familiar the next. Maybe you felt a shift in energy around certain relationships, but you couldn't quite explain why. Do you ever get the sense that something invisible is happening just beneath the surface of your everyday life? That unsettled feeling in your gut isn't paranoia. Sometimes discernment feels like anxiety before you learn to trust it. Sometimes your spirit knows the truth long before your mind catches up. Here's what I need you to sit with before we go any further. You are not being punished. You are being protected. And protection sometimes looks like exposure, the uncovering of things and people that were never meant to walk beside you into what's next. Development. Why some people study you before they show their true intentions. Have you ever noticed how some people don't attack immediately? They watch first. They study your patterns, your weaknesses, your kindness, your blind spots, long before they ever make a move. This isn't always evil. Sometimes it's simple human curiosity, but sometimes it's calculated. Someone wants to know exactly how far your grace extends, how much you'll tolerate, how much they can take without consequence. Have you ever felt like someone in your life knew exactly which buttons to push, almost as if they had been quietly taking notes on you for a long time? That feeling isn't irrational. People who intend to use you often study you first, the same way a hunter studies the land before ever stepping into it. The difference between being watched with love and being watched with intention to harm. Not everyone who watches you closely means you harm. Some people study you because they're trying to understand how to love you better, how to support you, how to walk beside you without stepping on the parts of you still healing. But others watch differently. They watch for weakness. They watch for an opening. They watch for the moment your guard comes down so they can slip through it. Have you ever felt two completely different energies from two people who were both paying very close attention to your life? One that felt safe, and one that felt like a slow-building threat. That contrast is important. Discernment isn't about assuming everyone is dangerous. It's about learning to feel the difference between attention rooted in love and attention rooted in agenda. Why warnings often come before consequences. Here's something worth understanding about how spiritual correction tends to work. Warnings almost always come before judgment. Nothing significant happens instantly, without mercy extending a chance to turn back first. Have you ever sensed that someone in your circle was being nudged, corrected, or unsettled in ways they couldn't quite explain? Maybe their plans started falling apart unexpectedly. Maybe their peace disappeared, even though nothing on the outside changed. Maybe restlessness crept into their life with no clear cause. That kind of disruption is often not random. It's frequently the sound of mercy trying to interrupt a path before it leads somewhere irreversible. The weight of being the one who gets watched over, not just watched while some people were investigating you with bad intentions. Understand this. Heaven has been watching you too, but with an entirely different purpose. Not to catch you slipping, not to expose your flaws, but to protect your steps before you even fully understood the danger around you. Have you ever felt inexplicably pulled away from a person, a place, or a decision right before something would have gone terribly wrong? That pull wasn't random anxiety. That was divine protection working quietly behind the scenes, keeping you one step ahead of a trap you couldn't yet see clearly. If you've ever felt that unexplainable redirection in your life, comment, "I've felt that" pull below, because recognizing protection is the first step to trusting it fully. And if you want to keep uncovering truths like this, subscribe now so you don't miss where this goes next. Why some people get a final warning. Before consequences arrive, there's a pattern in every story of downfall. Long before the collapse, there's usually a final warning. A moment where the choice becomes painfully clear. A moment where continuing down a certain path means fully choosing consequences with eyes wide open. Have you ever watched someone ignore signal after signal, opportunity after opportunity to change course, until finally something shifted permanently? That final warning isn't cruelty. It's actually one last act of mercy before natural consequences are allowed to run their course. If someone in your life has been circling a warning like this, understand, what happens next is no longer about you. It's between them and the consequences of their own choices. The exhaustion of constantly proving your character. If you've felt like your entire life has been one long test of patience, understand, you're not imagining it. Some people are placed in positions where they must consistently demonstrate integrity, especially when nobody seems to be watching. Have you ever wondered why hardship kept finding you, even when you were doing everything right? Sometimes the hardest tests aren't punishment, they're refinement. Character isn't built in comfortable seasons. It's built in seasons where doing the right thing costs you something. And every time you chose integrity when it would have been easier not to, you were building something in the unseen realm that will eventually show up undeniably in the seen one. Why two different investigations can happen around you at the same time. Picture this. One person watching you to figure out how to exploit your goodness, and another watching you simply because they recognize something rare in you worth protecting or valuing. Two completely different investigations happening simultaneously, often without either person knowing about the other. Have you ever felt torn between two very different energies surrounding you at once? One that drained you and one that quietly restored you. That tension isn't confusing once you understand it. Not everyone approaching you has the same purpose. Some come to take, some come to witness. Learning to tell them apart is one of the most important skills you'll ever develop. If this resonates with a season you're currently walking through, subscribe now. Because discernment like this changes everything about how you move forward, what it means. When consequences finally catch up to someone, there often comes a point where actions that were overlooked, excused, or unnoticed for a long time suddenly produce visible results. Relationships collapse. Reputations shift. Circumstances that seemed stable suddenly become unstable. Have you ever watched someone's life shift dramatically and thought, this has been building for a long time? That's not karma in some mystical sense. It's simply the natural unfolding of choices finally meeting their timeline. Every seed eventually grows into something, whether it was planted in kindness or in harm. If someone around you has ignored every warning, what unfolds next was never actually sudden. It was simply delayed. Why you don't need to seek revenge or force. Just I know part of you might want to see consequences unfold quickly for someone who hurt you or tried to use you. You want vindication. You want them to understand what they did. But ask yourself, does needing to witness their downfall actually bring you peace? Or does it just keep you tied to a story you're ready to close? Real freedom doesn't come from watching someone else fall. It comes from releasing the need for that outcome altogether. What if letting go of the desire for revenge is actually the final step in reclaiming your own peace? Recognizing when you were the one being protected all along. Sometimes it takes years to look back and realize how many dangerous situations you were quietly pulled away from. Relationships that could have destroyed you. Opportunities that would have cost you everything. People who could have taken pieces of you that you'd never get back. Have you ever looked back at your life and thought, I don't fully understand how I avoided that disaster? That's not luck. That's a pattern of protection that's been present in your life longer than you've probably given credit for. What if the very thing you called coincidence was actually intervention, quietly working behind the scenes on your behalf? If this is resonating with you deeply, subscribe now, because we're going to keep exploring exactly these kinds of patterns together. The loneliness of being discerning in a world that rewards naivety. Sometimes possessing strong discernment feels isolating. You notice things other people don't. You feel shifts in energy before anyone else names them. You sense when something is wrong long before it's confirmed. Have you ever felt dismissed or labeled as too sensitive or overthinking when your instincts turned out to be exactly right? That loneliness is real, but it's also proof of a gift most people haven't developed. Discernment isn't a curse. It's protection wrapped in inconvenience. What if, instead of doubting your instincts because others don't understand them, you started trusting them simply because they've kept you safe again and again? Why some people never receive a warning at all. Here's something sobering worth sitting with. Not everyone gets a final warning. Some people move so far past the point of listening that the warnings simply stop coming. Not out of cruelty, but because they've already made their choice clear through repeated dismissal. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to spiral without any obvious turning point, while others experience one clear moment that changes everything? The difference often lies in whether they were still listening. If someone in your life received a clear, undeniable warning recently, understand that it's actually a form of mercy most people never get. What they do with it now is entirely their responsibility. How to respond when you realize someone was investigating you, with bad intentions. Discovering that someone studied you, not to love you but to use you, can feel deeply unsettling. It can make you question your own judgment, wonder how you missed it, or spiral into distrust toward everyone else in your life. Have you ever felt betrayed, not just by someone's actions, but by your own inability to see it coming sooner? Here's the truth that matters most. Missing it doesn't mean you're foolish. It means you extended good faith, which is a reflection of your character, not your naivety. What if, instead of blaming yourself for trusting too easily, you honored yourself for having a heart soft enough to give people the benefit of the doubt, the strength it takes to keep your heart open after being studied and used after? Realizing someone approached you with hidden motives, there's a strong temptation to close off completely, to trust no one, to assume everyone has an agenda, to protect yourself by becoming hard. Have you ever felt that urge to build walls so high that nothing could ever get through again, good or bad? But consider this. Closing your heart doesn't just block out people with bad intentions. It also blocks out the people who genuinely want to love you well. What if true strength isn't becoming guarded, but becoming wise enough to stay open while also staying alert? If you needed to hear that today, subscribe now, because healing without becoming bitter is exactly what we focus on here. Understanding that your story isn't finished. Even if this chapter was painful, whatever has unfolded, whoever investigated you, whoever received their final warning, whatever consequences are quietly working themselves out in the background. None of this is the end of your story. It's simply one chapter, one season, one part of a much bigger picture still being written. Have you ever felt like a painful chapter was actually the turning point that led you somewhere better than you could have planned for yourself? That's often exactly how this works. Painful seasons rarely feel purposeful while you're living through them. It's usually only in hindsight that you understand why certain people had to be exposed, why certain warnings had to be delivered, why certain doors had to close before better ones could open, why peace is the real marker of being on the right path in the middle of all this. The investigations, the warnings, the uncertainty. There's one thing worth paying attention to above everything else: your peace. Have you noticed that even during confusing seasons, there's often an undercurrent of stillness underneath the chaos? If you're willing to tune into it, that peace is not naivety. It's not denial. It's often the clearest signal you have that you're being guided correctly, even when circumstances around you look uncertain. What if, instead of chasing clarity through overthinking, you simply followed the peace that remains steady no matter what shifts around you, becoming someone who no longer needs external validation to feel secure at the center of all of this? The people who studied you, the warnings being issued, the consequences unfolding, is a deeper invitation. An invitation to become someone whose security doesn't depend on other people's approval, behavior, or awareness of your worth. Have you ever noticed how much lighter you feel the moment you stop needing someone else to recognize your value in order to believe it yourself? That shift changes everything. It means people's hidden intentions can no longer destabilize you. It means warnings meant for others no longer have to consume your peace. It means your worth becomes something internal, unshakable, no longer dependent on anyone else's timeline, choices, or consequences. Closing, if any part of this reached something true in you, I want you to know, you are not naive for trusting people. You are not foolish for extending grace. And you are certainly not powerless in a story where invisible things have been happening around you. Whatever has been investigated, whatever warnings have been issued, whatever consequences are quietly unfolding in the background of someone else's life, none of that determines your worth or your future. You were being protected long before you understood the danger, and you'll keep being protected as you keep choosing discernment over denial, peace over panic, and growth over bitterness. If you're ready to change your life, to trust your instincts fully, and to walk forward with clarity instead of confusion, then subscribe to this channel right now. This is just the beginning of a journey we're walking through together, because you were never just being watched. You were being protected and prepared for everything that's still coming.